Chadian conflict, 1965, present. By Abdullah Chauhan. A brief history of Chad. On August 11, 1960, the French Chad gained independence from France and became the Republic of Chad. List of events. First Chadian Civil War, 1965 to 1979. Chadian, Libyan conflict, 1978 to 1987. Second Chadian Civil War, 2005 to 2010. Insurgency in northern Chad, 2016, present. First Chadian Civil War. The First Chadian Civil War began on November 1, 1965 when Frolinet, a rebel group of Chad that time, started fighting against the government of President François Tombalbaye. During the heavy fighting, President François Tombalbaye was murdered by his own army in 1975. He was later succeeded by Félix Malloum. Despite this, the Frolinet, National Liberation Front of Chad, continued fighting against the new government of President Félix Malloum. As the fighting continued, the Frolinet was divided between two factions, the faction of Hissène Habre, FAN, and the faction Goukouni Koudayi, FAP. Later a peace treaty was signed between the faction of Hissène Habre and the president of Chad Félix Malloum, in which Hissène Habre was made prime minister. Heavy fighting continued until November 1979 when the President Félix Malloum and the Prime Minister Hissène Habre resigned and the GUNT, Transitional Government of National Unity, was formed, which was led by Goukouni Koudayi. Result: stalemate. Start of the Chadian, Libyan conflict. Chadian, Libyan conflict. The Chadian, Libyan conflict began on January 29, 1978 when the Libyan government started supporting the FAP, the rebel faction army of Goukouni Koudayi, whom I talked about in the earlier slide. After supporting Goukouni Koudayi, the Libyan army launched an invasion on the Awassa Strip and later successfully captured it. The GUNT was supported by Libya. After almost 1 year with the support of France, the FAN, Armed Forces of the Northern Rebel, which was the army of the ex-Prime Minister Hissène Habre, started fighting against the GUNT FAP. As the heavy fighting continued, in March 1986 Hissène Habre's troops supported by French troops captured the entire Chad except the Tibesti region and the Awassa Strip, which was under control of the FAP, People's Armed Forces, which was Goukouni Koudayi's army and the Libyan army. After heavy fighting, finally by September 11, 1987 the FAP-GUNT and the Libyan forces were completely expelled from Chad, including the Tibesti region and the Awassa Strip. Chad was now under complete and firm control of Hissène Habre. Result: Chadian French victory. Second Chadian Civil War. The Second Chadian Civil War began on December 18, 2005 when some people in the government of Chad accused President Idriss Déby of corruption and betraying them. They formed many rebel groups and started fighting against the military government of Chad. After heavy fighting, finally on January 15 the Chadian government completely crushed and suppressed all the rebels. Result: government of Idriss Déby's victory. Insurgency in northern Chad. The insurgency in northern Chad began in 2016 when few rebel groups FACT, Forces for Concord and Freedom, and the CCMSR launched an invasion in northern Chad in 2016 from their bases in Libya. After little fighting, the government pushed back the rebels. Despite that, some insurgency continued until 2021 when the FACT and the CCMSR again launched an invasion in northern Chad. During the fighting, the president of Chad Idriss Déby was killed in action on the front lines of the war. He was succeeded by his son Mahamat Déby, who then completely crushed and suppressed all the rebels. Few clashes on the border of Chad and Libya by facts still continue. Status, ongoing. Low-level insurgencies continue on the border of Chad and Libya. Peace agreement was signed in August 2022 in Doha, Qatar, with all rebel groups except FACT who opposed it. Thank you. Please like, subscribe, and share.